Right, the stretch of road that you've just walked down is known as the Mall. You can film that if you want, so you can see the Mall. Right, that's the Mall, and it's painted red actually, because it's meant to be a sort of royal red carpet for the Queen. And it does hold a number of secrets, 2 rumoured secrets actually. The first secret that it's said to hold is that it's apparently meant to be converted to a runway in the case of an emergency, for the emergency evacuation of the royal family in the case of a war. Now, you don't actually know if that's true, and I'm pretty sure that if you call them, they're not likely to tell you the truth. But there's another secret. Apparently, below the Mall, there is a secret tunnel connecting Buckingham Palace and Downing Street, so that the royal family and the Prime Minister can have meetings in secret without having to risk going over the ground. Again, we don't actually know if this is true. What is true about the Mall, however, is that there is actually a river that runs below it, known as the River Tyburn. We actually have a lot of these secret rivers around in London. If you ever happen to find yourself in Sloane Square Station, if you look up above the platform, there is actually a steel pipe, and inside that pipe, you're going to find the River Westburn. We actually have a lot of other rivers, the River Fleet, the River Effra, the River Westburn, but all of them are either under the ground or they've been channeled into pipes or into the sewers. So the only river you're going to find here, unfortunately, is the Thames. Now, we're not really here to talk about the Mall, because obviously there's a bigger landmark to talk about. Now, can anyone tell me whether the Queen is at home?
Yes.
No, she's not. Unfortunately, she's not. Now, here's how to tell if the Queen is at home. What you see there, the flag up there, that's the Union flag. It's called the Union flag, not the Union Jack. It's called the Union Jack if it's on a ship. Now, the Union flag is flown above Buckingham Palace when the Queen is not in. It's currently summer, or the end of summer at least, which means that she's spending it in Balmoral Palace up in Scotland. Now, if the Queen is at home, the flag that is flown is known as the Royal Standard. It's a purple flag, and it can be recognised by the fact that there are 3 lions in 2 of the corners, and there's the harp of Ireland, and there's the crest of Scotland. So at the current moment, the Queen is not at home. Now, what do you think about Buckingham Palace? Do you like it? Do you think it's big? Do you think it's small? Are you impressed? Are you not impressed?
Can I go into the Buckingham Palace?
Well, you actually can at the moment because the Queen is not at home. So, you know, if you've got some money to spare, I think it's about £18, I'm not quite sure, you can look it up on the internet. You need to buy tickets online actually. But yeah, it's open for visiting at the moment actually, if you're interested. But yeah, do you like Buckingham Palace? Are you impressed generally?
It's too much traffic.
There's quite a lot of traffic, that's because it's quite a popular thoroughfare. But yeah, obviously compared to what you see on television, you get to see a lot of cars, you don't really... The palace looks a bit bigger on screen actually, so you might get a bit confused as to why it looks a bit smaller than it appears on television, and that's because the palace itself is not actually built for the royal family. Now if you look at the side, if you kind of look from the back of the palace, you realise that it's made of different brick, made of different stone, a much darker colour. So that was actually the original place, which is actually known as Buckingham House. Now, this space used to be the residence of the Duke of Buckingham, right until the time of King George III, who came in for a dinner. Now, they sat down for dinner, and while no one has a record of the conversation, this is probably a bit how it went. King George III, there, and the Duke of Buckingham. King George III, you've got a really nice place. Duke of Buckingham, thank you. I think it's very nice too. King George III, no, you don't get what I mean. I mean, it's a really, really nice place. And so the Duke of Buckingham ended up selling Buckingham House to the King for a princely sum of £21,000. Now if you think about what £21,000 is in those days, what it's actually worth today is actually £2.8 million. If you think about the fact that you can't really get a proper flat in central London for about even £1 million, you realise that the King actually got that place at a steal. Because trust me, you will not get a palace of this size for £2.8 million today. So that was quite a bargain. Now this facade that you see here in front of the building, that was not actually part of the original plan. That was actually added afterwards by Queen Victoria when she moved in. She was actually the first royal to live in this palace. After King George III bought it, he actually didn't live here. It wasn't until Queen Victoria moved into Buckingham Palace that we actually had a royal living in this part of town. Queen Victoria realised that the original Buckingham Palace wasn't enough to accommodate her family and all of the duties that she was going to perform in the palace. And so she added this beautiful facade in the front. And I did mention Queen Victoria, that's a memorial to her. She's the lady that's seated facing towards us. Now, about Queen Victoria, we do have this kind of impression that she was a very dour lady and she said things like, "We are not amused." And she always wore black, she was very boring, she didn't find things funny, which is actually a bit of a false impression. Now let's learn a bit about Queen Victoria since we're here. Let's talk a bit about her childhood. Now, she was actually 5th in line to the throne before she came to the throne. She had there was her father and there were 3 of her uncles. So there were 4 men before her. Unfortunately, they died in turn and we were left with William IV. Now, Queen Victoria was really young at that point in time. Sorry. And Queen Victoria was really young at this point in time. It's going to take a while. Sorry. And Queen Victoria's mother, the Duchess of Kent, and her rumoured lover, Sir John Conroy, tried to get Queen Victoria to sign an agreement in which they would rule together with Queen Victoria when she ascended to the throne at the age of 18 in what would be known as the Regency. Well, unfortunately for her mother, and fortunately for Queen Victoria, Victoria was a very smart girl and she constantly said no. She said, "No, I'm not going to sign this agreement." She constantly resisted, and on her 18th birthday, after the death of William IV, she became Queen of the United Kingdom. Now, Queen Victoria, the most famous thing that you need to know about Queen Victoria is her love for Prince Albert. Now, they had a really sweet relationship actually, despite the fact there was a bit of an arranged marriage actually. Now, you do need to know that Prince Albert was the first cousin of Queen Victoria, but that's fairly common for its time. When they first met, Queen Victoria was smitten, Prince Albert was smitten. They fell absolutely head over heels in love. And interestingly, it was Queen Victoria who proposed to Prince Albert to get married. And this is how it happened. You can actually read Queen Victoria's diaries on the internet if you're so inclined. Queen Victoria records that she asked Prince Albert to go into her private chamber. And she said to Prince Albert, "You know what I called you here for?" And then she added, "You're going to make me really happy if you say yes to what you think I called you here for." Prince Albert said yes, and they got married. And they were married for a period of 21 years, so that's actually a really long time. And between them they had 9 children, which is actually quite a lot of children for that time. Now, of all these 9 children, Queen Victoria married many of them to other royal houses around Europe, so they were actually quite well connected to the other royal houses across Europe. And even today, quite a lot of them are related to our current royal family. Now, after the death of Prince Albert, Queen Victoria decided to wear black as a sign of mourning for Prince Albert for the rest of the 40 years of her reign as Queen. And she wrote in her diary that "No one contradicts me now. I have lost the salt in my life." So as you can see, they had a really touching relationship, and it really does show you a very different side of the Queen that everyone thinks is a bit of a boring person. Now I'm going to give you some time to take some pictures. Feel free to ask me any questions about Buckingham Palace or about the area, and in about a couple of minutes we're going to head over to St. James's Park.